Welcome back, educational rock stars. In today's video, we are going to dive into some activities you can implement in your classroom to create rockin' readers and foster a love of reading. Stay tuned. Welcome back, rock stars. I'm Farah, and here at Miss Shipley's Classroom, we strive to bring you actionable tips and strategies for you to take into your classroom to make your teacher life a little easier because, well, you deserve it. Before we dive into our content, if this is your first time joining us here, please leave a comment down below and let me know where you're tuning in from and what grade level you teach. We are so excited that you're here and part of this amazing community. Reading is a vital part of education. We hear it all the time. Every teacher is a reading teacher, no matter what subject you are teaching. If you are looking through scientific facts, you're reading. Learning about the first person to walk on the moon, you're reading. Discovering who done it in a Hardy Boys story, you're reading. Reading is everywhere, so we have to make sure we are turning our students into rockin' readers. A great way to do that is through the use of reading activities. Whenever we are reading in the class, we are reading teachers. Therefore, every time we read in class, we as educators have the opportunity to transform our little readers into rockin' readers. There are so many reading activities out there, but here are a few activities you can do with your students to make the most out of reading every time. To begin, you want to make sure you're starting at the very beginning. According to Julie Andrews, that's a very good place to start. When you start reading with your students, you want to begin with the basics. When you're learning your ABCs, learn it to a classic tune or find some rockin' music that sets a beat to the ABCs. In fact, one of my favorite ways to practice the ABC song is not the traditional way that we learned it as children. If you do a really quick YouTube search and learn the ABC songs the way that we teach our ESL students in a VIP Kid classroom, you'll see that we change the tune and the beat up a little bit so that when students get to the part where they say LMNOP, they're not saying LMNOP. Once you have learned the basic letters, take time to look at phonics. Spending time on these basic skills is so important to your young readers. If you know students struggle with sounds like CH or TH, make sure you focus on these phonetic sounds when you read. There are so many phonics games available in Miss Shipley's Classroom online store that will give your students the practice on the phonics skills that they are struggling with. Another way to enhance reading is by introducing sustained silent reading into your classroom. Sustained silent reading is taking a certain amount of time out of your day to work with a few students, 2 or 3, who need extra help, and while you're working with these students, the others are reading silently. How do you make sure your students are actually reading when they're supposed to be? Using reading response sheets in your classroom when students do have sustained silent reading time provides you with a system in place to make sure they are staying on task. Check out the link below to check out our reading response sheets in our shop. If you have students who struggle with reading, guided reading is a great activity to partake in. Guided reading looks like this. 1, pick up a piece of text that relates to what you are reading or pick a class novel that you're going to read with your students. Write up some questions on the board or project them so students can see them. Read the story out loud and stopping to discuss the questions you've displayed or to discuss the difficult idea or concept. Guided reading is a great way to make sure your students understand the text, and it creates so many teachable moments. If you're looking for guided reading activities, you can find our guided reading with total physical response in our free resource library at Miss Shipley's Classroom. I'll leave the link down below. One of the best reading activities or reading strategies I have used in my classroom is the idea of close reading. In a close reading, you ask the students to experience the text at least 3 different times. When I used this in my classroom, I followed this process. I have my students read first for basic comprehension and unknown vocabulary. Then second, during the second reading, I ask them to take note of a certain concept we are covering, whether that's a character development, theme, or another literary element. Finally, the third time I have them analyze the text, explaining why they believe this is the theme or how the character developed throughout the story. Using close reading in my classroom was a game changer for my students. They became more thoughtful while they were reading and didn't hesitate to go back and reread when necessary. You can use close readings in a variety of ways for a variety of topics. If you want to just implement close reading in your classroom, check out our year-long close reading bundle over in our shop, where you're going to get 10 units of 10 different titles each that are differentiated to 3 different reading levels. I'll leave the link below in the description. Sometimes we get so caught up in identifying all the points of the plot and the character development, we forget that reading should be fun. Therefore, I encourage you to choose a read aloud that's fun, or a novel that's fun to share with your students. Sure, you can and should talk about the different elements of the text, but make fun the focus while you're reading this class novel. Having a shared reading experience will really help you later when students are reading their own books, because you'll have a reference point. I have found that finding a good series and only reading the first one to your students sparks the need to know what happens next. This need can turn a non-reader into a reader, even if just for one little bit. There are so many fun reading activities out there for you to use in your classroom. The most important thing you can do as an educator is read with your students. Read to your students and encourage your students to read to themselves and with their parents. Reading is one of those vital educational tools that students will use whether they're going to be carpenters or professional speakers. So make sure your students rock at it. Thank you so much for joining us here at Miss Shipley's Classroom. Don't forget to like and subscribe, or follow and turn those notifications on so that you get notified when we upload a new video or go live. We hope these tips and strategies make your teacher life a little easier and allow you to be the teacher you were meant to be. Until next time, keep being educational rock stars.